if you really don't see yourself 10 years from today working on this thing, then please don't do it, because it's going to take 5 years just to figure out what you're doing.
Welcome to the show. Cannon Carr with you. Thanks for joining us. Today's message is a powerful one for every entrepreneur. Play the long game deliberately and with focus, and you can build a business beyond yourself and create meaningful wealth. Our guest today is Bryan Clayton. He is a founder and has bootstrapped two businesses. The first one he grew to $10 million in lawn care and sold it. And the second one he's grown now to $30 million in annual revenue and continues to grow it nationwide. It's a company called GreenPal. It's a tech platform in lawn care. You'll find it an interesting description about the business. But Bryan is a humble, resilient, self-taught entrepreneur who loves to share his lessons to help you as an entrepreneur make better decisions as you start, scale, and grow your business to success. Bryan's been on over 500 podcasts. He brings stories that every entrepreneur will relate to at every stage. We cover a lot of things. One particular message I really love about that Bryan uncovers is that the market teaches you all the time what you need to know. You just have to make sure you're listening to it, because you never get it right the first time, as every entrepreneur knows. Secondly, there's also a hidden message here that's wonderful that we talk about. We're taught to work on the business as entrepreneurs rather than in it, so that we can build it beyond ourselves. But he points out a powerful lesson that you also need to work on yourself as a leader to become that transformative leader through the various stages that you're going to take your business through. It's a powerful lesson. We spend a lot of time on that one. Sit back and enjoy this episode with Bryan Clayton. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Let's just spend just a couple minutes setting the stage. Tell us a little bit about, you started in high school mowing lawns, and then by 15 or 20 years later, you had built a landscaping business with about 10 million in revenue, and you ultimately sold it. Tell us a little bit just about what you learned in that journey that ultimately set up what you're doing now.
Yeah, I think probably the best personal development thing you can do with your life is to start any kind of business, because the marketplace is always teaching you things that you need to learn. And it's also forcing you to learn new things to kind of grow and to be able to build a successful business. And that's how the lawn mowing business was for me. I started off with just me and a push mower, and I was just mowing yards to make cash. And then I had to hire my first employee, and that, then I had to learn, okay, what does it mean to be a boss and to be a leader and to be a manager? Nobody teaches us how to do any of these things. And so I had to do that wrong for several years until I figured out my style. And the next thing I knew, I had 5 employees, and then 10, and then 20. And at about year 10, I realized that I wasn't in the lawn mowing business at all. I was actually in the sales business. So I kind of had to build a sales engine at the core of that business. So like all of that to say, like building and growing that business to 8 figures in revenue and then getting it acquired, it was like an evolution. And every year I was a different person. And the building of the business is what forced me to grow and forced me to become things I never would have been otherwise. And who would have thought like the lawn mowing business could have been like so fulfilling to me? But it really was. I thank God that actually my dad forced me to go mow my first yard because he got tired of watching me play Nintendo. And I thank God he did that, because my life would be very different had I not like embarked on that journey of trying to grow a successful small business.
Well, so at the time of sale, were you still mowing lawns at all, or had you at that point hired everybody else to do that?
So it was probably year 5 that I was able to kind of get out of the truck, so to speak. And so it was year 2, 3, and 4. I was in it and on it at the same time. So I would literally run a crew. And so I would be in a truck with 2 or 3 helpers with lawnmowers loaded up, and we would go from stop to stop. And then as they were mowing I would supervise them mowing yards, and then I would do sales calls while they were mowing. And then I would do bookkeeping while they were mowing, invoicing, customer service. So I would do everything else while I was supervising them. And I kind of did that hybrid thing for maybe 2 years. And then I was able to finally get little managers in place of every crew that I had. And so it was just me in an office all day. And then from that point, I could like be more on the business and start looking at ways to build a sales system and look for ways to make us more efficient, make us better than our competitors. And then by year 15, I had we had about 150 people. So I had managers and salespeople and HR people and mechanics and crew foremen. It was very much a real organization.
That's awesome. So, well, just final point on that. Were you looking to sell and exit, or did that just kind of happen?
Yeah, I didn't build that business to sell. I built it to run my whole life, really. And so when you are running a business as a lifestyle business versus building one that you intend to sell eventually, those are two completely different paths. And so it was probably year 14 that I decided, you know what, I think I might want to create the space for the next like act of my entrepreneurial journey. And so maybe I'll explore selling this business. And from the moment I had that idea to the moment it was eventually acquired was about 2 years, because I had to reverse engineer a lot of things into the business that weren't there, that acquirers were looking for. And so if I had to do it all over again, there's a book called Built to Sell that's really
Yeah.
good about small businesses and setting them up to be acquired one day. I wish I had read that book like 5 years previously and just done everything that book said to do. And that would have made life a lot easier for me. You know, eventually it was a successful outcome. It was a win for the people that bought it. It was a win for my employees, which was important to me. And then that set me up to kind of do the next thing, which is building GreenPal.
Yeah. So walk us into that transition then. So did you have that idea before you sold the lawn care business, or was that something you started developing after? And what sparked that idea and how you got started?
Yeah, it wasn't my intention to sell the landscaping company and then start GreenPal, which is like a platform that works like DoorDash or Instacart, but for this one thing, for lawn mowing. It wasn't my intention to to sell that company and start this one. I really didn't have a plan. I thought I was gonna retire almost and like just be like a capitalist and just do investments. And I tried that for about a year and it just got boring really quick. I didn't have a mission. I didn't have a reason to get out of bed early in the morning and I didn't have a reason to read new books and I didn't have a reason to that personal development thing I was talking about earlier, like that stopped. And so things got existential and I thought, okay, I need to start another project. I need to start another mission. And I knew somebody was going to build an app that made this chore as easy as just pushing a button. I knew somebody was going to do that. And I thought, well, you know, why can't that be me? I watched the movie The Social Network. It looked easy in that movie. Mark Zuckerberg and his roommates built Facebook in a weekend. So how hard could it be? And it was kind of like you know, I was naive, and that was a good thing, because if I had known how challenging it was going to be to build this platform, I never would have started it. And so the transition was one of like just not knowing what I didn't know and just going from trial and error and failure to failure and just working on this one idea that you should be able to push a button, get free quotes, and hire somebody to do this chore for you. And luckily, I had made a decision that I was just going to work on my best idea no matter what, because I built and sold the last company and now it's time for the next thing. Let's just work on our best idea. And I didn't have any other good ideas. I've had one good idea in 12 years now. There you should be able to push a button and someone should do your lawn mowing for you. And the transition took probably 2 years to learn how to code and learn how to build software and learn how to run a tech business. And then probably 5 years in, you know, we had maybe a couple thousand users, and now we're 12 years in and we have around 300,000 people using this app to get lawn mowing done nationwide in the United States.
Awesome. Did you have some mentors or advisory people in some way in technology and finance in operations before you even committed to capital or not?
Great question. So that was one thing I knew I needed. I thought I really need to network and meet people who have done this thing that I'm trying to do so I can learn from them. And so I spent a year doing that, where I would go to every networking event. I would go to every meetup. And I live in Nashville, Tennessee. And so we're not really, Nashville's known for some great things, but we're not known for like starting a lot of successful consumer apps. And so I was like spinning my wheels trying to find mentors and networking and linking up with people who were doing similar things. And there just weren't that many of them. Everybody was kind of doing other things. And so I wasted a lot of time doing that. And what I learned was that I needed to try to consume all of the information and content I could around people who were like 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, like 2 or 3 levels in front of me doing similar things. And at that time in 2014, YouTube was just really kind of getting to be the behemoth it is today. And then podcasts were just starting to really take off. And what I learned was that I can actually get mentorship asynchronously. I can go and consume every single talk, fireside chat, interview that, say, Travis Kalanick has ever given. And he was the founder of Uber. And so that's what I did. I would go, and not only just the founders of these companies, but like executives at these companies would go to conferences and give a talk, and they would be talking about the same problems that I was dealing with building GreenPal. And that YouTube video would have like 7 views. And so what I learned was that the information's out there. Like half the battle is going down the long tail and the rabbit hole of finding it, but that you could actually get better mentorship, more helpful mentorship from people who have been in the game doing it, what it is you're trying to do. But you can get it asynchronously. You don't have to hit them up on LinkedIn and say, can I pick your brain? You can just literally listen to every podcast, every spoken word they have ever done on the internet and learn 99% of what it is they know. And so that's what I did. And that's how I kind of went from redneck lawn mowing guy to somewhat of a tech entrepreneur in a matter of 3 years.
Well, the words that come to mind are curiosity and persistence, right? And not necessarily brilliance, although clearly you're brilliant. But I mean, like, it's really, everybody's brilliant in some sense, but curiosity, persistence, those come to mind.
Yeah, and that's one thing I hope somebody takes away with an interview from me is like, that guy's not particularly brilliant, but he built a platform that hundreds of thousands of people use. He didn't know how to code. He didn't know the first thing about building a website, and somehow or another he made it happen. If he can do it, I can do it. And the way I did it was just literally being stubborn about learning the things I needed to learn to get to the next step of the game.
Awesome. One of my favorite themes is the theme of stubbornness, and we'll come back to that. But I want to kind of shift a little bit now and think, and you don't have to get personal numbers, but all right, so you sold the first business, and maybe that gave you enough to, I don't know if that could literally say, hey, you could retire for life. But how did you think about your own personal balance sheet as you started to fund, GreenPal and this new venture?
Yeah, it's a really good question because it doesn't get talked about enough. Mark Cuban says, the lower your burn rate, the greater your options. And so what he means is like the least, the cheaper your apartment, if you have a car payment or not, what kind of clothes you wear, do you do DoorDash once a week or more? Like, these decisions impact your business success because your personal P&L is your business P&L for the first probably 5 years. And so for me, I was lucky in a sense that I had built and sold the first landscaping business, and it was an 8-figure company. And so after I sold that, I didn't have to depend on a paycheck anymore. I didn't have to worry about paying like the utilities or the groceries. I wasn't like super wealthy or anything, but I could live a nice, comfortable lifestyle the rest of my life and not have to work anymore. And so that set me up to kind of swing for the fences. And I thought, okay, now I'm just going to work on my best idea, and I'm not going to do anything else.
Hey there, it's Claudia, producer of Business Owner Tales from the Trenches. Just a quick break to say, if today's conversation is striking a chord, don't forget to visit canon-car.com. You'll find key takeaways from this episode, deeper resources, and you can download Canon's 3 R's framework, a powerful tool for navigating the toughest moments in business. Again, that's canon-car.com. Now back to the conversation.
I don't think we would be here today because because we would have thrown money at problems and not solved the problem. And that's what happens to a lot of startups when they raise capital. Is like, it's like, truly, necessity is the mother of invention. And if your back is not against the wall in those early days, you're not going to do the hard work of talking to customers and figuring out what they don't like about your product and building something that makes their life easier. You're just going to like try to pay somebody to do that, or you're going to hire an agency to try to do that. And then the next thing you know, you don't have any money left. And that's what happens to most startups. Luckily, we didn't raise any money. I didn't want to like put all of the proceeds from the first exit into the second company because it wasn't a sure bet. And I didn't want to like ever pick up a weed eater ever again. So it was a unique situation that I think is probably like a combination of factors as to why we're still here today. And there was a lot of other Uber for lawn care companies that got funding that aren't here today. So we're very lucky in that sense.
Others have had the idea, but right, your funding approach has actually given you sustainability down the road, whereas others have not. So you didn't put a lot of your own capital into the business. You instead kept it lean and mean until you could start charging revenue, and then basically for every customer you got, you use that to fund growth, right? In other words, bootstrapping. Is that how you did it?
That's exactly how we did it. And so my co-founders and I did have two co-founders that were friends of mine. They put some money in and I put some money in. We probably had about $150,000 to start with, and then didn't pay ourselves anything for like 3 years. And so they still worked a full-time job, worked on this thing, worked on GreenPal nights and weekends. I worked on it 7 days a week. And we just did that and used every dime we could get our hands on to put that firepower behind whatever the biggest problem we had that week was. And in the early days, it was, we needed developer hours. We were teaching ourselves how to build software, but we needed like more help around that. And so we would make a little bit of money. We would hire a developer, and these engineers make around, $100, $200 an hour, sometimes $500 an hour. And so we would make a little money, more dev hours, make a little money, more dev hours. Now we have a team of about 45 people, and we've got a good like infrastructure around that. But in those days, it was very much like ragtag. Okay, we got an extra $1,000. Let's build this feature. And we know that's the feature we should build because we're talking to 100 customers a day, and they all hate this one thing about the platform. So it was like a hospital emergency room in a sense, where we were triaging all the time around what was the most important problem at that moment that we needed to fix to increase our chances of survival. And if we had $10 million in the bank, we wouldn't have thought that way. We would have said, maybe we should hire a PR agency and what is our culture? And we should redesign the logo. And like, these things do matter, but they don't matter at the early stages.
Well, that's great insight. So as you bootstrapped your way to, I'll say, a successful market, how long did it take market one to ultimately get some critical mass where you could say, yes, we've got something here that works? And then second part of that question, how do you know when to go deeper within that market or expand to a new market?
Really good question. So that was an excruciating part of the early days, because I had built a successful small business before, and we had thousands of customers in that business. And then now here I am starting all over again, just trying to get somebody to use this platform to get a lawn mowing for $27. And we have 100 customers. And that was not what I had signed up for. I wanted to build something that everybody in the country used. And so for the first 2 years, it was like we were only in Nashville, Tennessee. And I remember talking to my co-founders one day, and it was one Saturday morning, and I was like, we have got to launch our next market. I did not sign up for this to just be in one city. And my co-founder said to me, he said, dude, I think like 200 people used this thing last week, and I'm pretty sure we pissed off 190 of them. Like, there is no reason for us to go launch Atlanta, because we have got to get to a point where those numbers are inverted. And he was right. And so we stayed low and humble and just fixed the 1,000 things that can go wrong between I have grass that's 3 feet tall and somebody professional came out and mowed it. All of the things that suck about hiring a lawn mowing business were now our problem, and we had to build the technology to solve the hundreds of things that could go wrong. And so we did that, and it took like another year. It was 3 years before we launched our second market. And then after we launched our second market, third, fourth, and fifth, we got to a point where we could roll really quick, and we were setting up a new city every week or two.
Well, I think the Navy SEALs have a saying, smooth is slow is smooth and smooth is fast, or something like that. And that's
how it was for us. It very much was like nail it and then scale it. It was like there's no reason to try to scale something that's not working. And that's a trap that a lot of new founders fall into that raise capital. It's like the investors want to see growth, and that's all they care about. And so you as the founder, you have to like put up these numbers that there may not be anything underneath them. And it's oh yeah, we grew, but we used all of our money on Facebook ads, and everybody we bought through Facebook didn't stick around and used it a third or fourth time. So you really want to build something that people use, they get value from, that matters, and then try to scale that.
You use the word nail it, then scale it. Have you said that before, or is that something that just came to you?
I believe it might be a book that I read when we first got started. I think there is a book called Nail It, Then Scale It. And that's what it is about. It's like, don't try to scale something that's not working. And an early mentor in one of these asynchronous mentors had another phrase. The back in those days, viral loops were the big thing because products were growing virally for the first time ever. It was a weird phenomenon. Things like Dropbox were just growing virally. And he said, there's no reason to put a viral loop on a turd, because by the time you get the loop around again, you still got a turd. And so that stuck with me. It's like, okay, let's build something that people like, they get value from, even if it's only a few hundred. Eventually it'll be thousands.
A great visual there, and you're exactly right. So, well, let's pivot here and talk. A lot of the coaching work we do is around transformative leadership, right? Like as entrepreneurs scale a business, they find that their leadership skills have to evolve, otherwise they'll constrain the business. And oversimplifying your journey, but I hear two real transitions. One, you went from after selling the business to starting, the GreenPal. And then the second transition, probably the more even transformative, was after you hit your $1 million in revenue, where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got a real business. Now what do I do? Talk through a little bit about in either of those transitions, maybe in particularly the second one, how did your leadership evolve and how did you transform yourself to allow the business to scale beyond you?
It's something that nobody teaches any of us how to do. So it's like we try to like trial and error our way through the leadership piece of it. And then if we don't fix that, we never really grow a business that is much beyond our control. And that's kind of like, for me in the first company, in my second company, that was the thing that was the bottleneck, and like the difference between being self-employed versus building a business that could run without me. And in my first company, it was like the first 7-8 years was just every like organized chaos. And then I realized, okay, I have to build something that is a vehicle for people that work here to get where it is they are trying to go in life. That was an epiphany I had about year 8, was that this actually wasn't a landscaping company, that this was a platform that people could come to work, and because they're here, their life is better than it was before. And it's not just about the paycheck they get, it's about the training they're getting, or the fulfillment they're getting, or the opportunities they're getting to grow with the company because the company is growing, or we would do things like interest-free loans for anything like a new car, down payment on a house, things like that. We would give those out, and that was a lot of fun. And so I realized that in order to have something of value, that I would need to create an environment where we were winning, and that people enjoyed being there, and that people's lives were better because of it. And that was like a through line with the first company and GreenPal was I was able to carry a lot of the leadership things that I learned in the first business and apply them to GreenPal. Now my team was very small all over again. It was just me and my two co-founders. But the first 5 years were really tough. And so they kind of had like get in the trenches with me and like believe that the way I saw the future could become a reality. And so there was a little bit of leadership there. And then as time went on and we started growing the team around us, there was a lot of the lessons I learned in the first business that I was able to apply to the second business. Matter of fact, that was probably one of the only things that did carry through, because a lot of things were different. It's very different running a business with machinery and vehicles and laborers versus one of bits, code, software developers, engineers. Those two things are almost not even similar at all. But the leadership piece of it did carry through, and then but I've still had to go back and revisit that, because the way you lead somebody who does technical work versus the way you lead somebody who does physical work is very different as well. So I think a lot of times as a small business owner, if you're willing to invest in developing that side of it, whether you realize it or not, that could be the thing that unlocks growth for you, because it's probably a bottleneck for you. You don't realize it.
Yeah. So yeah, incredible vision you had of having those involved on your team, seeing what winning looks like, what fun looks like, and what career progression looks like, and giving them the means to do it.
A lot of times that's what good culture is. It's like,
yeah,
everybody obsesses over like, how do I create a good culture in my business? It doesn't matter if you have like a coffee shop with two helpers. Like, oh, should I be worried about culture? Like, how do I create a good culture? It's like, if you're creating an environment where customers are happy and you're beating the competition and people are winning and people can see like prosperity, that solves 98% of every culture question. So just focus on those things.
Great insight. So last question here then. So, most founders say, I do it better than anybody else. I think they learn eventually that may not be true, but there's things you have to do in delegation and building systems and building accountability. How easy was that transition for you?
Oh, it's really hard because now you're getting into personal development land, and you really need unvarnished feedback. If you think you do it better than anybody else, you really need feedback from those around you. You have to ask for it. You have to really ask for it and say, oh, you try to figure out what your blind spots are. And I would do this in my first company and now in my second, where I have to solicit feedback from people whose opinion that I value. Is like, okay, what am I not seeing here? What could I be doing better that I'm not doing? If you're not asking these questions, there's blind spots that you don't even realize. And that was, that if you don't do that, you can ruminate for years and just be stagnant and stale. And so as you're developing your own leadership style, you have to ask for that feedback and also let people know, I'm not going to be offended. I'm not going to be butthurt. And because if you don't really frame it the right way, you won't get the real feedback.
Yeah. Perfect insight. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about that word stubborn and just spend a few minutes on that. First part of that is looking back on the history. Were there times when stubbornness was the only thing that got you through?
Yeah, you can call it stubbornness. You can call it grit. You can call it being relentless, or you can just call it being consistent. All of these things are kind of similar. And what you have to kind of realize is that for me, like I mentioned, I had made a decision, a personal decision that I was just going to work on my best idea that I could for a decade. And that took care of a lot of the FOMO of missing out on, like a 4th of July party. I remember it was like summertime's a big peak moment for us. And so for 5 years, I didn't get to like go do the 4th of July party because I would have to work that day. And I just remember that being a sacrifice. But it really wasn't even an internal conversation in my head, because I had made a decision. Okay, I'm just going to work as hard as I can on my best idea because I really want to build something that matters. And so for me, that was a stubborn decision, a consistency. It was grit that my team and I had, and so I think you got to like have these things, and I think a lot of it goes back to don't start on any endeavor that you can't see yourself doing for a decade. I see a lot of new founders, they start a new business in a space that they're not like excited about, but they think it's a good opportunity to build something that could make a lot of money. And sometimes that does work, but a lot of times it's like they burn out because they don't really care about the idea. They don't really care about the solution. They don't really care about doing this for 5 or 10 years. And so if you really don't see yourself 10 years from today working on this thing, then please don't do it, because it's going to take 5 years just to figure out what you're doing. And it's going to take a lot of consistency, a lot of stubbornness, a lot of grit to get through, particularly those first 3 or 4 years, because you're going from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. You have to be enthusiastic about what little progress you're making. And that stubborn, like for us, the way we got through that and the way I was able to kind of remain stubborn was that we would celebrate small points of incremental progress like they were big. And so for example, our first goal was 100 people to use it in a week. That was it. like I just need 100 souls to use this piece of technology. We built 100 credit cards, and it took over a year to get that. But when we got that, we celebrated it like it was $1 million.
Yeah. Like that's it. We made it.
Yeah. I really felt like we were bending the world to our way. When 100 individual human beings used this product. And even though it was us like Wizard of Oz style, behind the curtain with spreadsheets and text messages and phone calls and emails, like orchestrating and making the whole like magic happen, I knew that we could build a system that could automate all that. And I knew that 1,000 could eventually be 1 million. And now we're at 300,000. And so one day we'll be at 1 million, but celebrate those little small wins, because if you add a 0 on the end, it becomes something. And it's only a matter of time before you do have a 0 on the end. And so that's how we remain stubborn, was by taking time out to celebrate incremental progress.
You mentioned Mark Cuban, and Mark Cuban says something like, I'm not exactly on the quote, but you've got to be obsessed. You should not think about exit. You've got to be obsessed to ultimately win. I do think that's mixed advice, right? I mean, obsession is important for the reasons you said. It'd be stubborn, be faith, have hope that you can get through the tough times. But the word obsession, just a heads up, makes me a little nervous because it means that you may not be flexible. What do you think about that word obsession for success?
I think the like flexible obsession is probably a better way to say it. I think what he probably means is you have to be obsessed because every successful founder that I've ever known, whether it be guys that were running like construction companies, and when I was running a landscaping business, I remember something that always fascinated me was the blue collar millionaire. And I would see guys in overalls and dump trucks that were super successful, and you wouldn't think it by looking at them, but they were obsessed with delivering loads on time and making sure that their customers were happy and not keeping like customers waiting, and they were obsessed with that. And like that's the same thing that I see in, like, I don't know, Sam Altman today. Like, he is obsessed with changing the world and delivering AI to every human being in the world. And so that obsession is the same, whether you're driving dump trucks or like inventing AI. And I think that the obsession just means like you're all over everything all the time. So every successful small business owner that I've ever seen, every successful founder that I've ever seen is like, they're all over everything all the time. Like they're writing code, they're writing copy, they're making sure customers are happy, they're looking at their reviews online, they're They are studying the competition. They're all over the bookkeeping and bank account and how much runway they have in the bank and what sales look like. Like they're literally all over everything all the time. They're not just in one little like sector or department of the business. They're all over the place. And that's what obsession, I think, means to me. And I think the gold standard for this is probably Elon Musk. Like, this dude is CEO of like 7 different companies, and he can go high, low, into any corner, nook and cranny of any of those companies and really get into the trenches. He can talk to an engineer at Tesla about battery life and how they're extending that, and then he can talk to somebody who knows what the alchemy is on the paint of the rocket in SpaceX, and then he can go to Twitter and speak to a DevOps engineer about why the platform was down for 3 seconds last week, and like this guy can go deep into any corner of any business he's involved in because he's obsessed with it. And like, if we can all just look at where Elon is and where we are and try to close that by an inch, I think that's the best way to figure out if you're obsessed or not.
Yeah, I love that answer. And you're right. And if you can close it just an inch, you're really doing extremely well, right?
You're doing well.
So, well, that's awesome. I love your curiosity. I love how you are obsessed and yet flexible at the same time, using your words there. And it's just, your success is exciting and your leadership lessons are exciting. All right, last question for you. There's so much more we could explore. We'll have to save that for a future episode. I think you've done at this point 500 podcast episodes. What is either the most interesting question you've ever had, or the question that no one has asked you, or at least you wish people would ask more?
Ooh, wow. Well, you asked some really good questions today, and I appreciate that. We had a great interview. This was a lot of fun. For me, some things that don't get talked about a lot are how to be successful in any business. You're going to have to set aside time to work on yourself. And we don't talk about this a lot. And it's like the book, The E-Myth, was about working in the business and working on the business. But something somebody has never written a book about is the third thing, which is working on yourself. Like, we're not taught how to be small business owners. We're not taught how to be leaders. We're not taught how to be managers. We're not taught how to do any of these things. Even business school doesn't teach us how to do these things. And so I think to have a shot at building a successful business, you're going to have to set aside time every week. You're going to have to be stubborn about it. You're going to have to be relentless about it for 3 or 4 hours a week to work on yourself. What are the skills that I don't have today that I need to get to the next level of the game? And it could be leadership. It could just be writing code. Like, I had to learn how to write code to build GreenPal. And so that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think it was clear to me when I was building GreenPal that a lot of my day was spent just poring over blogs, watching crap on YouTube that I didn't want to watch, listening to podcasts that at a surface value weren't interesting to me, but as time went on, like, they became interesting because I got to learn what they were talking about. So setting aside that time to work on yourself to get to the next level is something that I don't hear very much.
That's a brilliant point, and it's in my own right. One thing I do try to do is try to help small business owners understand themselves and their own journey they're taking as a leader, and keeping a balance for themselves personally, so you don't get burned out. So totally. That is a great insight. And well, Bryan, this has been an awesome episode. I've loved every minute of it. I would love to. You've already given me some ideas for another one with you, so let's stay in touch. But keep on, and best of luck in the near term as you keep building out to those million number of subscribers for the app.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yep, we enjoyed it. Thanks.